The Newcomers, a novel of global invasion, human resilience, and the wild places of the planet, by Pamela Jekel. Narrated by J.B. Thomas. We are citizens of the planet. We were born here. We're going to die here, come what may. We are entitled by our birth to the treasures of the earth. No one must be denied these. No one must be denied. Citizens of the Planet, copyright 1982, Paul Simon. Used by permission of the publisher, Paul Simon Music. Prologue. The impending end of the human species was demoralizing enough, and the inability to prevent it was terrifying. But the most awful part of the near extinction was that people could not figure out why. It was the why of it that brought them to their knees. But no God, not the God of Abraham, nor the twin gods of medicine or science, heeded their supplications. When the worst thing most people could imagine happened, many found to their surprise that they no longer feared death. In fact, they wished for it, welcomed it, yearned for its release. When their wishes were not realized, and they did not have the strength to end their lives, they knew they had to find places in the world where they could still survive, if only to see if there was anything left of them worth saving. And so some of them went back to the wild places of the planet. A few went back to Africa. Back to Africa, where some found peace again and joy, and the gradual rebirth of hopes they thought they'd never feel again. Back to Africa, to a place that was more brutally beautiful than the cities they'd left, and far more deadly. And so it was finally the wild places which brought the survivors from death to resurrection. But of course, not in the way they imagined it. Joan Wettinger buckled into the jump seat closest to the forward door, relieved that the long flight into LAX was nearly over. She'd flown for American for 18 years, seemed like twice that, and every flight stretched out longer than its actual time in the air. Too many passengers, carry-ons, crying babies. It would be sheer delight to get to the downtown Hilton and spend the next day and night in bed. "Tired?" Billy asked as he took the seat next to her. Billy Drummer, purser on this and so many of Joan's flights, was an old buddy, a sleek cross-dresser, and a hardcore dancer. Both senior crew, they could bid and hold the best domestic routes, the longest layovers. "Whipped," Joan sighed. "These transcons beat my butt. Too whipped to hit the strip? Maybe tomorrow night. Right now, I just want a glass of red wine and my pillow." "Getting old, girl," he grinned. She smiled and closed her eyes. She recalled one of her first flights into L.A., still domiciled in Manhattan, too junior to hold routes, on call for overseas legs to London, Rome, Paris, Athens, and finally, a deadhead back to her hometown with a layover long enough to see her family. So excited to see her mom and dad again after months of training in Kansas City, tickled to show off her uniform and sleek haircut to her little sister, let her get a whiff of all the exotic places she'd been, and she was called forward to hear the bad news. Kennedy Tower said probable landing gear issues. Might have to belly in, get the cabins ready. 2C and D, the senior flight attendant added. Connecting from Paris. Not a word of English. You'll have to translate. While the captain informed the rest of the passengers that they'd have to remove their glasses, any pointed objects from their pockets, and assume the come-to-Jesus position just in case they'd be sliding onto the tarmac in flames, Joan tried to explain to the two frightened Parisians in first class, with their college French, that death might be imminent. For a horrible moment, she could only remember the words for die and fire. But then her training took over, and she assumed a calm she did not feel. She smiled and helped the woman remove her heels and the man his fountain pen, and she showed them the head-down, hands-over-the-neck brace for impact they'd need to help them survive. And only as she realized that her parents and sister would be watching from the wide windows in the arrival lounge as her flight burst into flames did her hands begin to shake and her smile tremble. "Thank you, God."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?